Good evening. Welcome to the final class meeting of Edible Education 101, Class 14. It's been an amazing semester. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I know this is a crazy time of year in the semester, and it's quite a tumultuous time on campus here at Berkeley, the epicenter of the free speech values and movement. And for those of you that have been following both the news and Chancellor Dirk's emails, you know that we Berkeley are really in the center of the eye around free speech, action, and making sure that happens in a safe environment. So those of you that are on campus tomorrow, in case you haven't seen the alerts, I just want to encourage you that if you want to steer clear of Sproul Plaza, it's not a bad idea. Apparently there are some intention of protests tomorrow, and as we know from the last time we were here, the night that Robert Reich was here, there were protests on campus that regrettably turned violent. So once again, I'm Will Rosenzweig. I am here really with the good graces of the Haas School of Business and Alice Waters and the Edible Schoolyard Project. And one way that you can reciprocate to the Edible Schoolyard Project is to participate in their upcoming plant sale, which happens at Martin Luther King Middle School, which isn't far from here. It's a beautiful day to have food, to see how the Edible Schoolyard works in the garden and the preparation of food, and to participate in the community and to buy plants for you and your friends. And I think that this happens right before Mother's Day. So if you have a family member that loves plants, this is a great time to pick them up a gift. Before I continue, are there any other announcements this evening? No? I just want to also commend Ryan Peterson on the Zero Waste Project in the new building at Haas. That's off to a good start. Way to go, Ryan. And for those of you that want to participate, don't forget about that. Also, we've got a small yet committed, compact group of students heading next Friday, a week from this Friday, to Kennard Farms to meet the legendary Bob Kennard, who was my gardening mentor and somewhat of a shaman, actually, if you know what that word means. He is a shaman of vegetables, and he will teach you the deep-rooted practices of how to grow vibrant, vital vegetables. So I'm looking forward to seeing those of you that can come. If you haven't signed up, there's still a little time. We could use a few more drivers. And it's going to be a fun day, and we're going to get some great food, too. Rohini, do you want to do the super question now? This is your attendance question. Please take out your eye clicker. It's a little light tonight. I don't know where everybody is. I know some people were defending their master's theses tonight. So how do you plan on being involved in the food system after this class concludes? A, join a community garden or grow your own food. B, scrutinize food labels. C, get involved with a food bank or a food security issue. Compost your food waste or scraps. Or nothing at all. I'm just going to enjoy my summer and forget about everything I learned in Edible Education 101. Remember, this is completely anonymous, so just say whatever you like. No, it's not anonymous, actually. So we know who you are, letter E. How you doing? How's our attendance tonight? Okay. Let's see how you did. Let's see, PCs. Okay. Well, we have 5 honest people. Okay, so a lot of you are going to be looking at labels, a lot of you are going to be composting, and a number of you are going to be working on growing your own. So fantastic. That's not a bad outcome for this class. Thanks for being here. Okay. All right, I just thought I'd spend a few minutes kind of wrapping up the course, maybe trying to integrate some of the things we've learned These were the course objectives when we started. I also put these up so our special guest tonight can see them and can kind of evaluate how he thinks we did. But really hoping that you get a good understanding of how the food system's working, what your role in the food system is, and how your personal choices and actions are linked to that. Working with you to clarify your own personal values as they relate to the food system and the food movement. Develop a personal action plan for participation in the food movement, and hopefully the paper that you just turned in, by the way, congratulations for turning the paper in tonight. For those of you that remember to do that, thank you. But in that paper, you had an opportunity to kind of pick an issue that was important to you and develop a position and argue that position. And then some of you have already told me that you decided to do the extra credit and argued the counter position. And then finally, hopefully developing a vision for how your education can prepare you to make a difference in the food movement. And many of you have spoken to me separately about your intentions, and I'm really encouraged about the potency, the potential of action and impact just coming from the members of this class. So remember, we go way back to the beginning of the class, and we talked about the value of interconnection. Alice talked about slow food values, and that a core value of slow food was this appreciation of the interconnection. And we do this course because we hope it's through food that you begin to understand the connection between yourself, the environment in which we live, the food which we buy and digest, and start to understand this myriad relationships that are very complicated but very personal. And hopefully in this class, these concepts of kind of health and well-being and sustainability moved from maybe something abstract to something intimate and personal. So if we accomplish that, I think one of my goals was certainly achieved. We also got to look at the dimensions of the food system, and this was a graphic that we showed early in the semester, the tenets of a healthy food system. And if you look closely at it, you'll see that we really got to cover most of these areas. We talked about growing, harvesting, processing, kind of processing and transportation, how it's stored, packaged, how it's sold and marketed, how it's prepared, consumed, and then recycled and reclaimed. So we're all participating in all aspects of this every day, and hopefully you'll hold on to some of the technical things you learned and some of the philosophical things you learned as well. One of our other goals was really to develop this kind of superpower of food systems intelligence and the ability to develop X-ray vision of transparency, sort of seeing through the opacity of the marketplace, the opacity of advertising and claims, of terminology, and to be able to scrutinize and make your own decisions and ask your own informed questions. We even learned that asking questions of the people who are purveying or growing or transporting or selling the food to you can make a difference. It can wake somebody up to a new value or a new reality. We also talked during the semester, you've heard me kind of niggling on this word of consumer. I've taken some of our guests to task about the word consumer, and one of my friends kind of suggested Alvin Toffler's term of prosumer as an alternative. I suggested citizens and sustainers, and then Jason tonight, or earlier, he proposed the term investor, which I really liked. You know, if you think of yourself as an investor in the food system with every transaction that you enable, you're thinking about sustaining something or participating actively in it. So if you think about, well, I don't want to be an investor in that food system, I want to be an investor in this one, it's an interesting way of thinking long term. I really like that, so thank you for that, Jason. Also, I just wanted to note this class is really made possible through the wonderful generosity and vision of Alice Waters, who unfortunately couldn't be with us here tonight. She's still in Italy. Hi, Alice in Italy. We so appreciate your leadership and your guidance and your energy. And this class is also made possible through the generosity of Steve Silverstein, who underwrote our live streaming. I want to thank our teaching team, Ryan and Brian and Michaela, and especially Rohini, our GSI. I want to thank Hannah Love from Chez Panisse, and I want to thank the Edible Schoolyard Project. And I really want to thank the students here who participated so actively. And I also really appreciate one thing that might surprise you is one of my favorite parts of this class is actually office hours. And so when students come to office hours, I'm just delighted to hear what's on their mind and what questions they have. And I've heard some talk around the campus at Berkeley that sometimes professors aren't accessible or you can't see them. But if you don't get a chance to go to an office hour frequently, you're really missing out on a fun experience, and you're kind of depriving us of your presence and wisdom. So I just want to thank Judy. I'm giving Judy a copy of my book, which you saw last week, for her office hour. So thank you, Judy. Okay. We had an amazing trip. So Sam, this is for your benefit. This is the semester. This is 14 weeks of edible education. Started with Alice talking about slow food values. Alice Waters is really the standard bearer of the food movement. She sets a standard and she holds it. And for that, I am grateful and respectful. Some of you asked her some great questions. Nick did one night. I really appreciated that. Was very spot on, and I'm glad we have that preserved in the archive. So we also had David Masamoto, legendary peach farmer from the Central Valley of California. I think what I learned from him was that there was a joy in farming and that it was a collaboration with the people who ate his peaches. He didn't think about this transactionally. He thought about it, again, as a system of interconnected relationships, and he talked about how keeping those values alive now through his daughter's work and his family's efforts, that the farm is not just a place to grow fruit, but really a place to grow community. It was really a touching talk. Robert Reich was an amazing guest to have, and I'm so grateful that he's in our lives here on campus. He's been holding steady now almost 100 days straight with the resistance report. His wisdom, his eldership, is greatly needed and appreciated now. And I think his notions, when he talked about when he went on his book tour and he met those voters in the Midwest who couldn't decide between Bernie or Trump and why, and really has shed a lot of light on the importance of seeking the truth and also resisting the fake news and the BS and the spin. And if you don't watch his daily report, it's a really kind of grounding place to stay up to date and also hear from somebody that I think speaks a lot of truth to power. And then, of course, we had Naomi Starkman, who really impressed upon us the importance of journalism and independent journalism, a free press, particularly at this moment in time. Saru Jayaraman, one of our professors here, she was so dynamic. What I learned from her was this is the moment. You know, in a moment of confusion, of frustration, of antagonism, of alienation, she is seizing the moment and moving forward. And some of the things that she and her group are doing are so inspiring. If there's a person to really track in the coming months, put a Google alert on her name, because she's going to really be in the news. I can't talk a lot more about it, but word is that she's going to be at the center of a really important event that's going to pull together all of these things that we're learning about food and food justice right into the forefront of the political conversation. And then we learned about bacteria, that these billions of bacteria in our guts actually determine our health, our well-being, our immunity, our inflammatory response, and that we actually have a second brain in our gut that may rival the intelligence of this one. I also remember from Christopher Gardner that we're long on protein and short on fiber. So anybody changing their diet since then? And then we had that great food innovation night. We had 6 entrepreneurs. We talked about the kitchen of the future, which I know Sam is involved with. We talked about bite foods and food delivery. We talked about plant-based proteins. We talked about just how an idea becomes a business, and you got a taste of these kind of visionary, action-oriented entrepreneurs who are doing more than just starting businesses, but really trying to change and affect the food system in a powerful and promising way. Then we had Anna LePay, who talked about really how do we feed 9 billion people? How do we think about existing on this planet? Really moving talk. I think, I learned from her really the power of just showing up and codifying ideas in writing and organizing and being inclusive. And from Sophie Egan, we really learned the insights of how what we eat really reflect our identity and who we are. Then, of course, we had a great discussion with Raj Patel, the dynamo, very super expressive, learned, wise man, and Michael Pollan, really the godfather of this course, who I was very grateful who came. He's going to be on leave at Harvard soon, and I'm wishing him very well, and I'm really thankful that he effectively set the table for this course to be so successful and so popular on campus. Then we had Gary Hirschberg from Stonyfield Farms and the Just Label It initiative, and Paul Shapiro from the Humane Society, both really talking about how movements kind of coalesce and grow. And I think both of them showed us the example of how important it is to focus on the positive of what's working, and also to continue to clarify and repeat consistently, persistently, points of view, and to illuminate them in a way that people can engage with them. Then we had the Davia Nelson from the Kitchen Sisters and the founders of Cowgirl Creamery. We had Michelle Nishan talking about Wholesome Wave and how he's leveraged the SNAP program for the benefit of those recipients at farmers markets. Michelle just brings this vast vision and this charismatic energy, and I just love everything that he's doing. Maybe Sam can elaborate on some of the things that he's doing too. And then Dana Gunders on food waste with Jesse Fink. And then last week, Ashi Vel and Ali Kelly, who taught us about the importance and beauty of serendipity, among other things, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then tonight, very special guest, Sam Kass, a friend and colleague and important catalyst in the food movement with a very distinct perspective. I'm going to bring Sam up in about 10 minutes. Right now, for those of you in the class, we need to take the evaluation. If you're at home, hang tight. We will be back at 1:15. You're going to have 10 minutes. You need to take out your computer, laptop, phone. Hopefully you have the instructions for this. Atisha is going to guide you through it. You can come up here. I'm going to leave the room. I will be back. Do the teaching assistants leave too? Why not? We'll be back shortly with our special guest, Sam Kass. Yeah, it's up there. That one.
Hi, everyone. So if you don't have the link for the survey as of yet, it's projected up on the screen. We just wanted to ask you for the last question that is an open text paragraph response. If you wouldn't mind including some information about additional topics that you would like them to cover in the course next year. And also if you have any suggestions for speakers, people you feel should be included on the roster next year as well, please make sure to include that. Thank you. Do you all still need some more time, or are folks still writing? If you don't mind raising your hand if you are still writing. Okay, great. All right. We'll give it 2 more minutes. Thank you.
you.
No problem.
Okay, welcome back. It's really a great honor and a privilege to have our guest tonight, Mr. Sam Kass. Sam has spent the last 8 years of his life in the center of activity in the White House. He's been 3,000 miles away from Berkeley with a very unique perspective on food, policy, innovation, and the obstacles to it. I like to think that we're in one bubble here and he might have been in another bubble there, but he got out of those bubbles a lot because he was really the front man on the Let's Move campaign of the First Ladies. And he was the principal architect, and one of our alums, Allie Kelly, was part of that team, really taking that initiative to the people, and it had enormous impact. He was also involved in creating, designing, implementing the White House garden, which thankfully is, I understand, still there. It's safe, fantastic. And Sam, has such an interesting journey. I think maybe after his remarks, I'd love for him to talk a little bit about that. But when I first met Sam, he said, "Oh, Will, you're one of the OGs of the food industry." And I thought that meant old guy. But I needed Sam Kass to explain to me what original gangsta actually meant. So he's a good friend, he's an inspiration, and I'm so grateful that he's here tonight. A warm welcome for Sam Kass, please.
How are we doing? Oh yeah, please take that picture down. That was when I was younger and slimmer. It's painful to see that. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I do remember calling you one of the OGs, because you are one of the OGs. Can we give the OG a round of applause for all his great work? It's great to be here. I've been sort of hoping that I would get an invite to this course for 6 years, so it finally came. And I'm really psyched to be here. And so I'm going to really want to focus in on sort of where we are today, what tomorrow looks like, where we go from here, and then where you guys can engage, and I think sort of what's more important, how do you start translating some of these ideas once you leave? I'd see from the folks you've heard from, and I'm sure the things that you've read, I could spend a bunch of my time talking about how we need a fair, just, sustainable, biodynamic, local, healthy, nutritious, perfect food system. And we can get all riled up on that, and I could spend my time talking about, how bad everything is, and in fact, food is the second leading cause of climate change, and a third of our kids are on track to have diabetes, but that would be a waste of our time. We're all I'm basically aligned with a lot of what you've heard. Not all of it, for sure, but a lot of it. So we'll start from there. But I really want to get into a little more of a sober assessment, I think, of where we are, where we're not, and some of the key things we need to do to actually start bringing a lot of the ideals that you've heard into reality. And so I think a lot of what you hear as we talk, and we'll use this term a couple times, is around this notion of a food movement, and whether we have one and whether we don't. And some people say it doesn't matter. I actually think it really matters, that word that we use. And I would argue that we do not have a formed movement, food movement, a political food movement. And we have some of the important components. I think we have the foundation of it, which we'll get into in a second. But we don't have a movement. The reason I know we don't have a movement is because people are not voting on food issues. And my experience in Washington tells me for sure that we do not have the core components of what a national food movement looks like. But the question is, what do we have? Because we have a lot. And it's important to identify what we have and what we don't have. The fundamental thing, I think when most people talk about food movements or the food movement that we have, really I think what we're referring to is this cultural transformation that's underway in this country. And it's a deep and rich and powerful cultural transformation. And it is massive. And it is very exciting. And it's changing the way we eat, the way we think about our food, our expectations. And probably the most powerful example of this, last year, I saw an ad from McDonald's marketing the artisanal chicken sandwich. Anybody see that? McDonald's marketed an artisanal chicken sandwich. Now, if anybody can tell me what artisanal actually is, I'll give you $100 right now. Nobody knows what really that is. But it embodies this sort of value, craftsmanship by hand. And that means that McDonald's spent, a couple $1 million probably trying to figure out what's the word that they could use to market their chicken sandwich to the most everyday consumer in America. And they picked the word artisanal. Now, at some point, they're going to have to live up to that word. That's another story. But for me, that showed just how deep these ideas of better food had penetrated our country and our culture. And our politics, I think, are in its truest form one of the deepest expressions of our culture. There's this notion that somehow we have culture over here and politics over here. If anything, we're seeing right now, it's like there's big parts of our culture that are expressing themselves right now. And that is definitely true for food. So if we want to change food, the foundation, if we want to change food politics, we have to continue to change our food culture. And then figure out how we start translating that transformation, which is underway, which is why I'm quite optimistic ultimately, into our politics. But and it's another thing to say, the way culture ends up playing out in our politics is the notion of the nanny state, right? The nanny state is a really powerful idea. And when it comes to food, people are really sensitive, even though a lot of particularly progressives are like, that's just a right-wing way to undermine. No. It's the nanny state. People do not like government messing with their food. Imagine if, President Trump came to mandate that we all had to eat like him. People would be freaking out, right? Especially in this class, I would think. But there's a real sensitivity around how politics can enter our food and our lives in that way. It does all the time, but it's something that we have to take seriously as we think through how do we change our culture to provide the room in our politics to make some more progress. But I also think at times we overstate the role of politics in food. They're super important. I've spent much of my life dedicated to that transformation in our political system with food. But ultimately, food is the deepest expression of who we are, who we're not, how we show love, and how we nourish ourselves day in and day out. And that can't be missed. So a lot of times we're sitting here waiting for the government to save us or just blaming the government for creating all these problems. These aren't problems that government created. Most of these problems are rooted in our culture and how we approach and relate to food, which is why this transformation is so exciting, which is why it's so powerful and so important to stay focused on as we think about actually translating this to a bigger political movement. So, and I'm going to try to get through this sort of big assessment, and then Will and I, we can get into some more specific White House stories and get into a lot more questions. I'd much rather be in Q&A with you guys. So the question is sort of what do we need? Like, where do we go from here? I think the first thing we need is real leadership. I think the food movement is plagued by a lack of leadership. For the most part, at least in my time in the White House, much of the food movement leadership were actually critics that were masquerading as leaders. And Critics are very different than leaders. Critics get paid to be critical. They get paid to write critiques. They're not strategic thinkers. They're not trying to lead to a better place. Their incentives are very, very different. And a lot of that criticism is based on painting this utopic idea of what a perfect food system looks like, and then being enraged and indignant when we fall short of that. Now, I think ideals are really important. They help us stay aimed in the right direction and working towards the right set of things. But the one thing that changed for me when I entered the White House is that when you're on the outside, you can start from your ideals and your critique flows from that. When you're actually responsible for changing something and responsible for making progress, you have to start with reality. You have to start with actually what is the situation. And I know I want to go all the way up there, but I'm only going to start. I can't get there without taking that step, and then that next step, and then the next step. You cannot be an effective advocate or a policymaker if you are divorced from reality. It's really important. Ideals keep them at heart, but you have to be really deeply embedded in the political realities and the social and cultural realities of our current situation if you want to figure out how to actually make real, tangible progress. That I promise you will not be anywhere near the ideal of a giant, perfect food system that's feeding hundreds of millions of people here and billions of people around the world. That's where those critiques really start to fall flat, and in fact, ultimately undermine the progress that we're making. But I'll get to that. But we need real, strategic, pragmatic, serious leaders, like a lot of the people you heard from. Michel Nichon, that dude is doing it. Like, that man is rolling up his sleeves and like getting in it and get engaged in Washington. He's in the White House. I met with Wholesome Wave as much as any other group in the White House. He's on Capitol Hill working the senators. He knows every hunger group and is working with all of them. They are doing the real work. There's lots of great leaders. So it's not to say that good food isn't starting to produce incredible leadership. But those leaders need to be the voices and actually need to start shaping our broader direction if we ultimately want to be effective. The second piece that I think is critical for us to build is infrastructure. So the fact that this class exists is absolutely amazing. It's a huge sign of the kind of infrastructure that's actually needed to build a real political food movement. When we entered the White House, think about this. In 2009, there was one class in any university on food. One at NYU, which, by the way, I got into and didn't end up going because I went to the White House. And Michelle, at one point, she signed something for me, said, "Aren't you glad you didn't go to NYU?" It's probably the only reason why I would have been glad not to go to NYU. But think about that for a second. One university class. If you want a movement, think about the environmental movement. How many environmental studies programs there are? Think about the social justice movement. Think about how many of those classes there are all over the country. We're now seeing these universities all over the country starting to have classes. Law schools are starting to create food policy lawyers. These are the kind of the infrastructures that we're going to need to build. Because so let me just talk through, like, when you're trying to create a policy, what does that process look like? So let's say I'm on the, let me use how it kind of works well. So on the environmental side, where there's been decades of investment, decades of work, the way it basically works is you have a bunch of policymakers in the White House or in an agency that are super overwhelmed, are doing the work of like, one person has the job of at least like 50 people. The notion that government's too big is a joke when you think about the responsibility, the task at hand versus the number of, no business would set up the government with that ratio of people. So there, everybody's overwhelmed and dealing with like 50 major issues. So the way a policy is done is you have a bunch of experts, advocates, often lawyers, come in. The environmental guys would come in with like 2 briefcases. They'd lay out on your desk, here's the 50 bills I want you to pass, and here's the 20 regs I think you need to write. And about 25 of them are totally crazy and just completely non-starters. They're like, they're very out there and just no way. Then there's probably 6 of them that are really bad policies and just not a good idea. And there's probably 4 that are, my math is off, I'm sure I'm missing some, but there's 4 that are really good and smart and strategic that need some work. So then you take those ideas, you work with experts, you start to craft them and translate them into a better policy, hopefully. And then you start running it up the decision-making train. And the first question is, okay, well, is this the right thing to do? And you have to say why this is the right thing to do, what's the impact it's going to have, what's the cost to society. So if the cost to society is significantly greater or even close to the positive benefit you're going to get, it's hard to justify doing it. But if you can show that the benefit significantly outweighs the cost, you have a pretty good argument. Then the next thing you're going to be asked is, well, where has this been done before and what happened? You cannot create federal policy out of nothing. No, the United States is not an experiment. The states and cities, it's been designed to experiment with laws, try things out, see what happens, and that then gets scaled. So if I can't then look to where different advocates have done the work on the state and local level that I could then say to the chief of staff and the deputy chief of staff, it happened in these 3 states, we saw these sort of improvements and a reduction in costs that played like this. If I can say, well, I don't really know, let's just roll the dice, you're not going to get anywhere. And then they're going to say, okay, well, who's with us? So if all that lines up to that point, politics doesn't matter. If all that lines up, then they're going to say, okay, do we have a real coalition? Like, do we have boots on the ground, or do we have people who are going to support us and help us make sure that we can execute this well and that we can make this a win? And you do the calculations. Sometimes, when it's important, you're ready to spend a bunch of capital, you know you're going to take a big hit, but it's the right thing to do, it's going to have a big impact, and so you do it. But you need a team on the ground who's ready to help you get out there and win the fight, because you've got to get things passed. Just because you get it done doesn't mean it's not going to be tried to be repealed or changed every single budget cycle, every single opportunity that the other side's going to have. Right? That's how it starts to play out. That's the kind of infrastructure you need to successfully do meaningful things, specifically on a federal level, but that plays out in state and local too. And then the question is, but on the food side, like, we didn't have any of that walking in. And that's the kind of thing that needs to be built. There's some great groups doing some really solid work in DC, and I don't want to in any way make people think that it's a total vacuum. There's some really good groups doing great things. And schools was actually one place where there had been an incredible amount of policy work when we got there, and a great coalition that had been built. So when we walked in there was the first draft of what these policies could look like. There was a broad coalition aligned to help us to say, the time is now, let's do this. And we were ready in the middle of a budget crisis where it was really intense to push through a child nutrition bill while the economy was in the utter free fall. But we did that because we could get the policies tight and we could get them really good, and we had a broad coalition that was saying it was the right thing to do, and we had a first lady who was going to put the president on the couch if he didn't make sure it got done. And that's a powerful combination. So we need to really focus in on building our institutions, building our schools, building policy shops, getting more lawyers. We need an army of lawyers if we want to actually create this kind of movement that I think we all envision. And then I think the other big thing that we have, but we need more of, is momentum. The president taught me momentum in this very moment. I've never actually told him this, and he doesn't know he taught me this in this moment. But when we were in Iowa in 2008, he won it was crazy. Everybody was going crazy. And we had this big rally in some gym. It was one of the most exciting moments of the whole ride because, people worked so hard and, nobody fully expected him to actually do it. And so I'm backstage, he does his thing, everybody's screaming, and then I come out, and we're about to go load up in the vans to go back to the hotel, and he's standing there with Pluff and Axelrod, his two senior advisors, and I'm walking by him, and right as I walk by him, I just hear him say, like just as I'm passing, like I don't slow down, I just hear him say this one sentence. He says, "Well, tell him to get on the train because the train's leaving the station." And I just kept going. But what he had in that moment, what he captured in that very moment that night was momentum. And momentum is the hardest thing to get. It is so hard to create momentum. And when you have it, it must be cherished and protected and nurtured and grown. Because once you have momentum, like anything and everything is possible. And it is really hard. And I think we have so much momentum right now, and we've been taking it for granted. We've been taking it for granted. Once you lose it, it's really hard to get it back. So let me just put the infrastructure and advocate side with momentum together and sort of how this played out for me time and time again. But I'll give you one example. So one of the things we did is we launched a water campaign. Because, public health is saying, eat your vegetables because it has vitamin B, C, and D. And the other guys are saying, drink this and be happy, or get the sexy lady, or, if you're going to be the best person ever if you just drink or eat this product. And love, sex, and happiness beats vitamin B and fiber every single day, right? So we decided we're going to take whatever the giant food guys got to market their products, we're going to go out and partner with all those same folks, and we're going to bring a hardcore marketing campaign to water. Because water, nobody's got water's back. Because first they say, we need to get water's back. So that's what we did. We worked with Nielsen. We got all the data. We got a better campaign than those guys got. We got because we got it all through a partnership organization. It was not given to the government, but we got everything there is to get to do a campaign. We got all the market research. They did the tests about how people responded to different words and images. We got everything. And the campaign was called Drink Up, You Are What You Drink. Because people make decisions based on emotions, not on cognitive. And we have to, this is a whole different conversation, but we have to start talking to the cognitive, to the emotion, not the cognitive, especially with food. So we had this incredible campaign that was totally based on science, that was created by Y&R, one of the best marketing firms on the planet. And I was worried. We were marketing water. I didn't care where it came from the tap, from a stream, from a bottle. We were agnostic. And I assumed that we were going to get criticized for having bottled water companies be a part of it. Totally legitimate criticism. I briefed the team. We're going to get some blowback here, but it'll be fine. And it was a real coup for us because this decision on water went all the way up to the CEOs of the two biggest companies because the evidence showed, and they knew it, that the more water people drink, the less soda people consume. Direct correlation, right? But the way you get people to drink less soda is not telling them, drink less soda. It's telling them drink more water. Coke doesn't say drink Coke, not orange juice, right? They say drink Coke, be happy. So this was that effort. So we launch it. It's incredible. And we get panned because we didn't say don't drink soda. Panned by every health organization. Now, we had said don't drink soda 5,000 times. We actually codified that statement in my plate. So it was a drink water, not soda is official government policy recommendation to consumers, official. And I had the best marketers in the world say, if you want people to drink less soda and drink more water, this is how you say it. And we got crushed. Crushed. So here's what happened. That whole campaign never got off to how it should have. But for people who saw it, we moved the entire category by 3%. Nielsen had to run the numbers like 10 times because they could not believe how effective it was. They'd never seen a campaign be a private, for a company or anything ever be that effective. It never got the momentum that it needed. And because it became such a political vulnerability for us, it was very hard for me to get approval for the next thing. Because they're like, well, that last thing you did was a real mess. No, but this is true. It was like it was a real mess. Like, what makes you think, like, this next one isn't going to be a bigger mess? And for any company that sticks their neck out to try to do the next thing, there's somebody in there driving that. Every politician who decides to step out and take a risk and stand for something, they're taking a risk. And every time when their friends make them pay a political price, the likelihood that they're willing to take that risk again next time is greatly diminished. Or the person who was driving it in that company or in government who drove that is now had their knees chopped off. Right? Now, luckily, this was a big priority for us, and we weathered that and carried on. But if this was like, she wasn't so committed to it, that could have been the end of it, right? So we have to do a much better job at not turning our wins into losses. And if you stop and think, I'm not sure what like Raj said, but I know Raj is critiqued pretty well, Pollen's critiqued pretty well. But if you look at what we actually did, and just to name a few while I'm here, we transformed school nutrition, banned junk food from schools, we banned trans fat, GIPSA, against what you had read, was released. We eliminated direct payments in subsidies. We got insurance for fruits and vegetables, which they didn't have before, big deal. We funded local food systems. Anybody who says we didn't make huge progress on antibiotics simply does not know what they're talking about. WOTUS, Waters of the U.S., maybe the biggest food policy rule we did. Most people in the food movement have paid little attention to it. We transformed businesses, My Plate, Nutrition Facts Panel, expanding WIC. I mean, I could go on and on, right? Protecting waters, all the climate change work. We kicked a bunch of butt. We got a lot done, huge amount done. And it should be like, another win, who's next? Another win, what's next? Coming for you. Like, get on board or you're going to be run over. That should be have been our posture as a collective. It doesn't mean that when somebody steers wrong or doesn't go far enough that you don't push them. But that should be, you guys should feel like, man, the wind is at your backs. But yet most of the stuff I'm sure you guys have read, and this is in the context of by far the most progressive administration in history on food policy. Like, nobody even close. In the history of the United States of America. Like, nobody close. But if you read what most people have written about us, it's like we were the problem. Right? And you read these narratives around, oh, they tried, but the food industry is just so powerful that they just couldn't stand a chance, and, thanks, basically. So first of all, that's just wrong. But second of all, that's just stupid. Like, if you're trying to build a movement, nobody wants to go to a loser. That's no way to bring more people into a fold. But look, that's not what people like to read. People like the dramatic story and the big ogre of the food movement, of the food industry coming in and causing harm. But that's not the truth. Those guys are running scared. They're desperately trying to change their companies because the consumer is changing. They're feeling the political pressure like they've never, literally ever felt in their entire 100-and-some-year existence for most of those companies. And that's awesome. We have so much momentum. And it's a great time to be doing this. So we got to stop turning our wins into losses. If we want, this is hard enough. Like, this work is hard. And that's going to be absolutely critical, I think, if we're going to start unlocking like the full potential, is to just try to unleash that momentum as much as we can. So the question is, what's tomorrow look like? Where do we go from here? And I'll try to be pretty brief. First of all, I think the culture, the focus on the culture must continue. And I actually think we steal what Coke did and we use that as our strategic focus. So Coke's built their entire business on within arm's reach of desire. So basically surround people with Coca-Cola and then make them want to desire it. So we have to figure out how to surround people with better food and make them want to desire it. Same play. Actually very simple in its core. Very difficult to accomplish. But we need to stay focused on that, and that helps shape the culture around us. I think that culture will then help allow for a lot of the technology and innovations that are coming to really unlock their potential. And there's so much happening here. And you saw a bunch with the innovators that you met with. But I think these innovations can really unlock a lot of value in how we feed ourselves. A lot of the problem in our food system is not subsidies. Literally, completely, and utterly factually untrue. It is not why prices are distorted. You go out and talk to any ag economist you can get, they're not going to tell you that. The reason why we have such distortion in the food system is because for decades we've invested in corn and soy research. And so in the last 50 years, we've been able to increase corn production per acre by 7+ times yields. The reason it's cheap is because we can grow so much of it on 1 acre now. So much. Fruit and vegetable, maybe twice the yield in the same amount of time. So that's the disparity. It's the innovation that's been brought. Forget about what you think about GMOs and all that other stuff. That's the disparity in why healthy food is relatively more expensive than unhealthy food. We have to start figuring out how to make healthy food much more accessible and much more affordable for people. So like the biome, which you heard about, which I'm not going to talk about since you already heard a lot about it, that's going to change everything we understand about nutrition and health. We're feeding our guts and our guts are feeding us. Turns out. We don't feed ourselves, we feed the bugs. Big, like that's a big deal. Super excited about that. Spectrometers are going to force transparency throughout the supply chain. So when you could, in 5 years, 10 years, be able to scan an orange and know where it came from, how old it was, how long till it goes bad, how it's going to taste, you're going to be able to know how that apple is going to taste just by putting a little light on it. Imagine the transparency that comes through that. It's going to be a game changer, right? I think gene editing is also going to be transformational. You know, the ability to manipulate the expression or silencing of genes within the genome. The food world is going to have a lot of work to do to work this one through. It's not external DNA. It's not a GMO. But it's going to have a lot of modifications. But what if you can grow wheat with 4 times the fiber? Or you can grow broccoli with twice the nutrients and resistance to disease, and so you don't need to put a bunch of fertilizers on it. And you can grow it now for 50 cents a pound. What do we think about that? And so I think the food world's got to really reckon with how we engage and understand science and technology. We definitely don't want to be anti-science, but we definitely want to ensure these innovations are actually serving the needs of people and actually helping us reach these goals around sustainability and health. But we're going to have to come to some understanding here, because so much of what we're doing right now is reacting emotionally to these scientific pieces, largely because who's doing them right now. But it could really stifle the progress that we can make. So I think there's a lot of work we're going to have to do there. And then on the activism front, it's all about the state and local for 2 main reasons. One, nothing's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. And nothing's going to happen there for a while. Because from the executives, we did most of what you could do on your own. There's some other things to do for sure. But the vast majority of fruit that was there to pick just from the White House has been picked. And if anybody wants to place a bet on Congress, like I'll take that. I'll give you 10-to-1 odds that Congress is going to do some groundbreaking stuff over the next 5-10 years. Doesn't mean that engaging in Washington still is not really important, because there's going to be a lot of attacks on progress that are going to happen. The Farm Bill is always important no matter who's in power. So I'm not saying take your eye off the ball, but the actual foundation infrastructure of the movement is going to be built on the state and local level. And that's quite exciting, and so much is happening. I mean, that's where there are parts of a real food movement, it is in those pockets on state and local. And then you're building the pipeline and the roadmap for the federal government. Hopefully, when they get their stuff together, and the culture will have shifted, we'll be ready to take some more action. So real quickly, just where do you go? Like, how do you start translating all this? It means a lot of things, but it means getting in. So it means going to DC and working for a House member or a senator. It means running for office. Please run for office. Run for state, city council. Run for your school board. Run for anything. If you really want to get all the way in. Go to law school. We need more lawyers. So that's if you want to make a life out of these issues. But the other thing is we need to start bringing these ideas and these policies and this work to all kinds of institutions. You go work at, wherever you work. Doesn't matter where you are. Part of how we weave a culture and a fabric of a healthier world when it comes to food is, whenever your job is, talking about, like, can we improve the food in this one office building? Can we make some policy to make it easier for mom to breastfeed, because we know that's so important for the long-term health of kids. Or all these various issues need to be taken everywhere. So even if you're not deciding, like, I'm going to be a full-on food policy person for the rest of my life, there's ways to take this in sort of anywhere you go that I think are absolutely essential in solving these challenges. So I will just end by saying I could not be more optimistic about where we are. Like 10 years ago, nobody could have imagined this much stuff would have happened. Like, nobody. Both in the White House, but everywhere. Naomi just said to me, can you imagine going to a class like this when we were in college? Like, no, I literally couldn't have. And so we are at the perfect time to be doing this work. There's no better time to take these issues on. So I'm just psyched to see you guys, that you're real and that this exists. And I'm excited to see all the great work and change that you guys are going to do in the years to come. So thank you guys so much.
Yep. Well, Sam, thank you for those comments. Thank you for all the work. And I don't think we can really appreciate how hard that work is, and how that crucible of Washington is not a kind and gentle place.
No, it's not.
And trust does not run abundantly. So I'm really in awe of how much you and your colleagues and the administration really accomplished in food, and I think many of us miss that leadership dramatically. And
Yep.
A couple things. One, while you were speaking, one of my faculty colleagues here at Berkeley texted me and said, I'm loving Sam's talk. However, in 2009, there were a lot of food courses around the country. Maybe not a food policy master's, which I think you were referring to at NYU. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That there's a lot of schools. Berkeley's got, I think, 190 affiliated faculty with the Berkeley Food Institute who are doing pieces of food. But I think to your point is there's a moment to pull this together into much deeper study and policy. So around this issue of leadership, I'm kind of fascinated with where do the platforms for those leaders, where do they exist? I guess that's one question I have. Because, you think about, at least from my purview, and it's pretty naive, I think, but you see money. There's the need for a lot of money, and there's a lot of big funders, and there's no constraints on how much people can give to different political activities. So when you think about like how do you aggregate or coalesce the pockets of dollars, where do you find like common ground across bipartisan interests? Is there a little island or lily pad of food interest that could be built? And
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it definitely could be built. I think it's starting to be built. And I think you're starting to see more investment in this space, both on the business side, but also on the advocate and policy and politic engagement side. And ultimately, most of these issues are bipartisan. Unfortunately, right now, they're kind of becoming a victim to the partisanship. The partisanship is so intense right now in Washington that it's sort of everything is victim to it. Nothing is rising above it. But I think this comes back to the momentum point. I mean, funders want to fund something that's going to work and that they feel like is going to make a difference. And if things aren't working, why put in $50 million into that if all the good comes out, it's not that good? So I think telling the story of progress and showing that these additional investments could hire 50 students from this class to go up and start lobbying on the Hill because we could get these 10 things done. Those are the kind of strategies that we need to be putting together, but it's like the little strategy. I mean, it's the trans fat strategy, right? It's the fruit and vegetable snack program strategy. It's very detailed. Like these big ideas things don't translate. So I think figuring out what we think we can really accomplish and doing that hardcore work is the key. And if you can go to funders and say, we're going to focus on this part of the issue, sustainable fisheries, for example, and these are the kind of 3 core problems, and these are the 3 policies that we want to start pushing, that's the kind of thing that can get some real funding because you can show that, and with some confidence, you can get it done. And there's organizations that are doing that, right? And the ones that are most concrete and wedded into those details, I think are the ones that are most effective. So come up with plans. Like do the hard work, talk to the people you need to talk to, come up with plans and strategies and figure out who's going to be part of the coalition because nobody does this by themselves. And that's the kind of way that I think you can find an organization maybe that's close, maybe can help help you fundraise, and that's, I think, how it really starts.
I appreciated your comment about the importance of, the ideal and the current reality. We have a tool in the entrepreneurial kind of course called the creative tension model, where we talk about the vision and the current reality and then the pathways.
Yeah.
And the leader's job is to maintain the proper amount of creative tension that maintains motivation, commitment, momentum. But if it's too much, if the current reality bears no relationship to the ideal or the vision, then the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
People don't believe, they lose interest, they get demoralized. If the vision is not suitably sort of ambitious from the current reality, then also people aren't interested. Yeah. So as a leadership model, I'm interested in a couple things. One, there are a lot of really interesting kind of smallish food organizations, and they're kind of undercapitalized, they're under-resourced. Some of them have great leadership, but they don't have a full team. Have you looked around and thought if you could move the pieces around, is there a design to because you're talking about, we have a lot of fragmentation in this conversation. We have a lot of perspectives. I think your point on the role of criticism was well heard. But there's a lot of organizations that are doing, there's, I don't know, I could reel off 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
Should they merge? Should they talk to each other?
Yeah, it's hard to answer that just sort of with a blanket sort of answer because I think each part is different. I think we need to, I think we do need to have some consensus on, kind of pragmatic principles and some real strategic objectives, which everybody can work towards in their own way, and start, figuring out, okay, what are we just going to set aside and not worry about? Like, what's really important?
Who's the best person to do that? I remember like when Tom Harkin was in the Senate, he was the champion of preventive health, and that really filtered down into food.
Yep.
And he was the
huge.
standard bearer of that. He protected that, and he was a very respected guy across both aisles. He's gone. He's retired.
Yeah, he is gone.
Is there anyone
I think
on the horizon that we should be?
I think
paying
Senator
attention to?
Sabinow is our best bet in the Senate. She is tough. She is smart. She cares about this stuff. And she's also pragmatic. And she's the best hope that progressives have on agriculture issues, for sure. And she causes some trouble in there. And, like, I think a lot of people were let down with her because there was an ultimate compromise on just label it. But that was always going to be the outcome of that. And part of the problem was expectation was either exactly what we want or it's a mess. So that was a perfect example for Sabinow. She put her neck out. She fought tooth and nail to make companies disclose that they're using GMOs. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment of the food movement. If you would have asked me if that was possible 3 years ago, I would have told you no chance, no way, not even close. And yeah, so their QR codes, is that ideal? Do I think that was the right fight to begin with? I'm probably not, but we went down that way, spent a lot of money on all sides, and she really held the line and got a lot done, didn't get everything done, and she got her head chopped off for it. And so why would she go to bat for that coalition again? So
We should write her a thank you note.
you should totally write her a thank you.
Okay.
Thank you notes matter. One of the questions in the thing is, does it help to call or write? Or the answer is absolutely. People, they're just human beings, everybody in there. They love when they hear from constituents saying, you did a great job. They hate when people knock on the door and say, I think you're not doing a good job. Hate it. They hate when you call. Hate it. Trust me, it really matters. It doesn't always feel that way because you could call and they end up doing the same thing, but man, they hear it. I'm actually amazed how effective it is. And by the way, like for us, when we would do something that, I would tell the team, like, listen, we can't do this. We're going to get crushed by the movement. And then we'd have to do it for whatever legal reason, whatever, and I'd go to my phone and I'd sit there and look at my phone. And I'd be like, like when you're waiting for the girl to call you back, you're like, is this working? Like, yeah, it's working. And then I call USDA, it's like, did you hear from anybody? They're like, no. It's like, wow, well, I guess people didn't care about it that much. Mm. And so that stuff really matters. I can't overstate it enough. So, I think in that regard, I think she's a really good champion of this stuff.
And what about the people that kind of came out of your team and, like, you decided to take your action right now into your teaching, your speaking, your investing, your mentoring young companies. You're really kind of focused on entrepreneurship and innovation.
Yep.
Tell us about that. Maybe I'd love just for you to talk a little bit about the serendipity too
of my
in
story.
your life. Yeah. It's one of my favorite topics these days.
Should I start with that?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'll try to.
And then we'll have some time for questions from the audience.
So I guess my story is I was trying to be a professional baseball player. Had dreams to make it to the show. Didn't go so well, apparently. I went to junior college trying to get drafted in Kansas City, Kansas, community college. My poor mother could not sleep for a year as I did that. I ended up transferring to the University of Chicago, got a history degree. And I'll give you this. This is I'm writing one of two books, but I'll give this, for you, Will, because I love you. Just because you like serendipity so much. So I had worked one summer in a restaurant in Chicago, and so I said to the head of the program in Vienna, it was the only program I got into. In fact, I didn't get into it. I got waitlisted. I kind of told the guy, listen, you got to let me in. I'm going to make the most out of this, out of anybody else in this class. Like, I will make the most of this experience. I promise you. So 2 weeks later, I got in. And the third day I was in Vienna, I had said to the head of the program, like, I'm kind of interested in food. Like, maybe you can get me into a pastry shop once a week just to check it out, because Vienna, you know, I hear they're really good on pastry. That was all I knew. And she came back and said, the second day I'm in Vienna, she called me up and says, okay, so my husband's uncle's friend from college, son, rides bicycles with the sous chef of the best restaurant in Vienna. If you want to meet him tomorrow, he'll meet you on this street. How's that for serendipity? So I'm like, all right, I'll meet this guy. So the next day I go to the old part of Vienna, and I'm sitting there, and you know, I didn't know where I was, I didn't know anything, and there's this guy across the street with like this racing bike and full like racing spandex gear and homemade brandings on his arms and big Prada sunglasses and a black bandana. And I'm like, God, that dude looks so crazy. And then like he's standing there, I'm standing there, and he walks up to me, he's like, are you the Yankee that wants to cook? And I was like, oh shit, like, yes. But he turned out to be the best chef I've ever worked with in my whole life. And he ended up inviting me into the kitchen. I ended up staying for a year and a half. I went back to the States, tried to get a worker's permit, couldn't get a worker's permit. So then I just went back and worked illegally. And I was there for a year and a half, and he trained me, taught me everything I knew. I stayed in his apartment. He moved in with his girlfriend. They fed me and gave me a bunch of wine and gave me knowledge and just kicked my butt for 18 months. And then the authorities found out I was there, and then I got like run out of the country, like threatened to be arrested, and I like had to go. But that's, you know.
That show up on your White House clearance when you...
Yeah, they didn't ask me about that, and I certainly didn't tell them. But yeah, so that really set me on my path, including learning and sort of being shook about, like awoken about health issues in food, sustainability issues with food, and very quickly sort of put down cookbooks and started reading every food policy book that had been written at the time. It was before Kindle, so I had my bag, and I then spent 5 years sort of cooking and traveling around the world, and I had 2/3 of my bag was full of books. And I remember asking myself, like, why am I reading all this? Like, what am I doing? And I was in New Zealand. I was cooking for a family in New Zealand. I just shrugged it off and just went back to reading this history of agriculture book. It's still one of my, this incredible book. And then it made, eventually it all made sense. But at the time, it didn't make any sense.
So how do you end up cooking for a senator in Illinois?
So I end up, after sort of cooking, traveling till I was broke, went back to Chicago to organize chefs around food policy, was my stated intent. And this was in 2007. And the family that I was cooking for in New Zealand was from Chicago. And I had known the Obamas a little bit in high school. Not super well, but I knew them. And the dad of the family ran into Michelle, and they started talking. And this was also like the third day I got back. And ended up getting reconnected with Michelle and started helping them a few times a week, because there was like just grandma. Like they didn't have a staff, or, they were professors and professionals from the south side of Chicago. There was not any kind of team. So I started helping her a few times a week, and we started dreaming about, all right, so we started, we overhauled all her food and really worked on the kids got markedly healthier, and we started dreaming about, okay, what could we do if we, if we got into the White House, and we was like, okay, first thing we could do, plant a garden. We'd see how that goes. If that went well, then we do this big childhood health initiative, and then we start cracking up because he was 30 points down the polls, and we're like, we're crazy. This isn't happening. But obviously, we were wrong, thankfully. So yeah, and then away we went. We basically had a plan and a vision for what it was going to be. No real sense of what that meant, though, because nothing prepares you for that place. But off we went.
Thank you. for sharing that. One of this, Brandon offered a question here. How will the Trump administration's outlook on food policy affect American restaurants and their inclination to display transparency to their consumers?
Well, maybe I'll just say a word about the Trump administration in general and food. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going all the way there. I think right now, I feel pretty confident that most of what we accomplished is going to remain. For most of the work that was done, the trains left the station. The policies are implemented. Businesses have adjusted. Like in schools, for example, everybody's, changed their products. All the schools are implementing it. Sales are up. And really, you're going to spend your capital on trying to put junk food back in schools. No parent really supports that when you actually break down what it would mean. So you may see some little stuff like slightly changing the sodium number, maybe tweaking how much whole wheat, but it's all little stuff. They may make it out to be rolled back Obama policy, but the heart and center of what we did is not going anywhere, and businesses don't want it to go anywhere. So I think there's some of the bigger rules like Waters of the U.S., which is a hugely important rule, is definitely in threat. I think a bunch of the environmental stuff obviously is really in jeopardy, and that's quite concerning. But the body of the regulatory work, you really want to put trans fats back into food? Let's have that fight. Come on, bring that one on. So, most of the stuff we did was made common sense to families and to parents. So I feel pretty confident on the body of the work. In terms of restaurants specific, but I also think we're going to see what kind of movement we got. I think, honestly, the President and First Lady made our movement feel way bigger than it was. And we're going to see what's been built in that time, because I think we helped create a lot of momentum, and so a lot of things were able to be established in that time. We'll see how strong it is and how we can try to nourish it in this time to get ready for the next time where we have somebody in office who's ready to take these issues on so we can be much more effective than we were. I think that's what this time's all about.
Are there opportunities to kind of prepare and educate
Yep,
and
absolutely.
those people? I mean, how do the students here influence?
Get engaged. Show up. Show up.
I just got an email, by the way, from Michelle Nishan's office students, and Wholesome Wave is looking for interns this summer to work on some projects. So if you're interested in that, get in touch.
That's how you do it, and you learn. And let me tell you something. When you go to DC, most of those offices on the Hill, they look just like this class. They look just like this class. You guys are doing all this work. It is not an old person's sport, the DC. It's crazy. You make no money, and you work your butt off for 20 hours. At a certain point, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. So, you just got to show up and knock on doors, and if you really want to do it, you're going to find a place to start doing the work. Just in terms of restaurants in specific, I think the political pressure is obviously going to be much less on businesses to continue to make changes, but the consumer pressure now is extraordinary. And I think that pressure is way bigger than any one administration, way bigger than Michelle Obama or Barack Obama. It's way bigger than the White House. It's way bigger than any individual entity or anything. It is unleashed. It's unleashing its power. And I don't think there's any that genie is out of the bottle. I don't think you put that back. So while, 10 years ago, would that shift have mattered? Yes. I think it matters less now. I think consumers want this, and the new generation of companies are founding their businesses on those kind of things like transparency or sustainability to solve those problems. And that dynamic is putting extraordinary pressure on the bigger guys who are either going to figure out how to change their companies, or they're going to lose market share as your generation grows up. And that some of those guys are going to go out of business, some of them are going to change for the better, and there's going to be a whole new generation of companies that are actually doing a much better job. And that's what's happening right now. And so I'm not as worried about what's happening in Washington for that reason.
Who's got the mic over here? Okay, Rohini, who's got a question for Sam Kass? Is Nicholas here tonight? Nicholas, why don't you ask your question? About the Obama's favorite dish. Was that yours?
Yeah.
What's their favorite food?
Yeah, I was wondering what the president's favorite food was.
I'm glad, because if that wasn't asked, this would have been the first time that I've spoken that it wasn't asked. So I'm glad. Keep the streak alive. So my canned answer for that was always, it's top secret information, I can't tell you. But that's obviously not true. Although some people really did think it was some sort of secret. They eat very everyday, classic food. Nothing. He hates fancy food. Like, he hates, if you can't tell what it is, he's not down. He's like, I don't know what that is. Like, what is that?
Foams.
No foams, no powders and stuff. Like, none of that kind of frilly things. Like, he likes a good cheeseburger. He eats a lot of fish, a lot of always brown rice, a lot of vegetables. The burger was like his Saturday, like, I'm gonna, just chill out kind of meal. But really, really simple stuff. Nothing crazy. And he's kind of like one of those guys who, he both like plays it off like, I'm not fussy. I don't care too much. But he really does care that it's really good. It's like, that was really good. That was tasty. That was some tasty stuff. That's his. So he's got that interesting kind of dual approach.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
What do the dogs eat?
Dog food. We're not cooking for those dogs, if that's what you're asking. I was not making them gourmet meals. Although sometimes they, help themselves to a plate that was left unattended. But no. I don't know what brand, if that's what you're asking. I don't.
Question over here, Jason.
Thank you so much for coming. So obviously having the Obamas as your boss could be a very stressful experience, especially since they're like the leaders of the free world. So can you talk a little bit how you handled stress in such like a high pressure kind of situation?
Yeah.
And also managing obviously a lot of things in government that also is a task on itself.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit how you did self-care or personal management around stress?
Nobody's ever asked me that question.
You're in Berkeley.
Yeah. That's awesome. I
The
really
health and
appreciate
well-being.
that. You care, yeah.
Eudaimonia is
Yeah.
the water here.
I love it. The whole thing was stressful. So, obviously working for them is stressful on some levels, although, I had a personal relationship with them and there's a trust there. So on some levels internally is really hard. You think it's like one big team. It's not one big team. Like, everybody's got their own things, and it's famous. White House is famous for being a really tough place to work because everybody's trying to get their stuff done, and there's a limited amount of time, and the clock is ticking. So that internal dynamic is really challenging. I think the thing that would help me in those really hard moments where something wasn't going well, or I took on a big risk, or this thing didn't happen, I had a big problem, is I would just try to really focus on what was important and why we were there. And always keep that close, particularly for young people. It's I would just think about those kids in schools who were being served a bunch of junk, and all the families, particularly in lower income communities, that didn't have good food, and all the environmental degradation that was happening. And you just you know what, I just gotta stay the course. And I would think to myself, honestly, the other thought that really helped me was well, if Barack can deal with what he's dealing with, then I can handle this. And that thought actually, now that you make me think about it, that thought was really important because, I was dealing with this little teeny part of this huge the world that he had on his back. So it's okay, just buck up. You're all right.
That's the essence of leadership, really, right?
Yeah. In terms of what I did for myself, I did not do a very good job. I worked really hard. In the first term, as we were trying to launch everything, it was really kind of like a startup. Nothing like that had ever been done in government, ever. Certainly not out of the White House, definitely not out of the First Lady's office, anything substantive and structural and policy. And my routine would be be at the White House by 7, to sprint for your whole day, like back to back the whole day. Then I'd literally like run, oftentimes literally run through the White House to get dinner on the table at 6:30. You know, because I'd be in some important meeting that I couldn't leave because we're making a big decision, and be like, oh my God, I gotta feed the president in 30 minutes. Like, I gotta go, guys. And then we'd play a little pool, and then I'd go home, and either I'd collapse and then wake up at like 3 and then start working. Because by the time I was doing dinner, like everybody's finishing their emails and stuff, so all this stuff would pile up. So I'd either go like crash at like 10 when I got home, or 11, wake up at 3 and then start working, or work till 3, go to sleep for like 3 hours or 4 hours, and then wake up. And I worked every single weekend without exception, like all day Saturday, all day Sunday for 4 years. So I did not do a very good job. But we had no, I mean, you gotta remember, we had no budget. I didn't have a single dollar allocated to Let's Move. And we had no roadmap. There was nobody there like, here's how food policy has been done in the White House before. There's literally never been anybody with the word food or nutrition in their title in the history of the White House. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. So we were making it up as we went. So that just meant we had to be really creative, and it meant more work because you couldn't just throw some money at it or hire a couple extra people, or, you know, at a certain point, there was a year where basically I was the team with an intern. Then we got Allie and Marissa, who's now Marissa's at Stanford. Then we were like rocking. We were like, wow, look at this big team. I felt like we had an army. So in the second term, I got a little better, but the love would be like going to like Jose Andres' restaurant, one of my friend's restaurants, and getting some tasty food, having a drink, and you know, really appreciating that, and then back to work.
Question over here.
Hi, I have another question. I thought it was really interesting what you said about local governments and cities being the model, like especially right now, for what the federal government will take on.
Yep.
So how do you see that working on the local level? Like, where are the ways we can make progress? And like you mentioned, calling representatives and running for office, but like just for an average citizen who cares and wants to do something, but like isn't necessarily going to run for office, how do you spearhead that and make that happen?
Yep. Depending on where you are, now you're in Berkeley, so there's a lot going on here. There's a lot in San Francisco. You guys are in a, you know, kind of beautiful bubble for this stuff. I think one of the fundamental things you can ask is whenever you should show up to town hall meetings. You should go visit, like ask for meetings. They will take your meetings with staff, with local representatives at any point in government, and ask, what's your policy? What's your food policy? What's your plan? What's your policy on schools? What's your policy on local vending? Or what, you know, and just start asking. If nothing else, take an hour of your time, show up, and ask them what their policies are. If enough people do that, they're going to have to come up with a policy. They can't have a significant constituency that and ask them about something and then they don't do it. That's like, that interaction is a fundamental part of the democratic
That
process.
goes right to, you know, you go to a restaurant and ask them, where's the chicken come from?
Same basic.
You go to the retailer and say, what's your sourcing standards?
Same basic dynamic for business is, yeah, you know, yeah, what's your policy on this? Can I see some more information on that? If nothing else, I think that's a really powerful thing to do. Now, if there's a particular issue that you care about, I'm sure there's somebody else that cares about it too. And I'm almost sure there's some group, probably quite small and underfunded, that's doing something on it. There's no issue right now that somebody isn't doing something on. And I think the work is seeking them out and saying, I want to put in 2 hours a week on this. How can I help? And seeing if you can start, whatever that may be, seeing if you can start getting some traction on it. And as those things start to add up, you see a few cities do it, and then the state's like, oh, you know what, there's something here. They're passing something, and the mayor's winning, right? So if mayor passes city council passes something, the mayor enacts it, and like voters like it, well, the next city's like, oh, well, I can't have Mayor so-and-so do this and get the credit. Like, I want to do this too. And then the governor's like, wow, this is my state and I got all this happening. And, you know, then I'm going to take it on. But it has to be wins. That's why the winning part is so important. I can't overstate it. Like, if the mayors are winning and win, then the governors are winning, then the next governor's like, well, wait, I'm not behind. California's not behind Texas, so we better get this going, right? You know, that's how it all works. It's weird how that plays out.
But that's the momentum.
But that's the momentum part. So show up. I just think show up.
Show up.
Like everything can start when it's show up. Nothing happens if you don't show up.
Well, we're grateful for you showing up for this class and all the people who are watching the live stream. I hope you feel inspired and empowered to direct your resources and attention to making the food system better, healthier, and more sustainable. As a special gift to the students tonight, you're welcome to do a little shopping. Share everything here. There's a lot of fresh vegetables. And we'll see you next year. Thanks very much.